Welcome to the Layman's Seminary. As we're continuing our series on Final Destiny throughout the Bible, we are now in Exodus Part 2. In the first video, Exodus, I interacted with Dillo's Final Destiny. In this one, I'm going into more of the word studies. I did my own work in this area using Logos Bible software, and I want to share that with y'all, and we'll continue the series in that way. So with that said, we'll begin. Okay, so these are the three words that y'all were exposed to in the Final Destiny in Genesis Part 2. All right, so Nakela for inheritance, Yarash to take possession, to drive out, even to destroy, and Kalek. Well, Kalek is not in Exodus, so we won't be discussing this word, but we will be discussing Yarashmore, as well as Nekala, and also the verb form of this word, Nakal. So here we go. We will also be discussing the word for son, Bain, and Bekor for the firstborn, or the oldest. So in Exodus 4:22, we have this passage that I mentioned in the last video on Exodus. Israel is my son, my firstborn. So we'll do the study on son, and then the next time firstborn occurs in Exodus, we'll pick up on that in a different passage. I know it occurs right here, but there's a passage in chapter 6 wherever I insert that. Okay, so moving on. So here's Bain. Here's the range of meaning that's going on right here. You can see that there's tons of options on what categories this word for son can fall under. Okay, here's another screen full of categories that it relates to throughout the Bible. And here's another one. So that's 3 screens full of options for how the word Bain is used in the Bible. Now, what we see here is the frequency of the use of Bain. It occurred several times in Genesis, and it occurs sometimes in Exodus. But far as the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, Numbers has the most occurrences. But then we get into the historical books, and you see the First Chronicles has the next most occurrences, probably because there's a genealogy there. But this is just a way to get a feel for how different books or different types of writing is emphasizing certain words. We did this in the last Genesis video as well. Okay, so here's me zooming in and showing the occurrences in Exodus. And by putting the Hebrew word in, the first occurrence actually occurs in Exodus 1:1. And the word son is all throughout the text. I talked about in the Exodus video part 1 about the motif, the battle of the sons, or possibly the battle of the firstborns. That whole idea there, you can go back and watch that if you haven't already. So here, I just want to bring out this passage that this is talking about Moses. The child grew and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So there's a sense where an adoption idea of sonship. Just want to mention that. All right. Exodus 4:22. Israel's my son, my firstborn. Here we are again, right? The same passage. And it keeps going on with that firstborn imagery. And then whenever Moses and Aaron went and assembled themselves before the sons of Israel, he performed them signs. And look what the text says. So the people believed. I take that as that they were saved. I have a video wherever I discuss the 4 types of salvation in the book of Exodus that I did before this video in a different order. So it can either stand alone or be part of this series if it wanted to. I'm mainly treating it as separate. Even though it's still called Final Destiny, I'm not putting it in the playlist just yet. Maybe I will, but for right now, I haven't. Anyway, there's that video, Final Destiny and the 4 types of salvation in Exodus. So in Exodus 6:4, we're reminded about the sojourning, how God established his covenant with the sons of Israel. And then in 6:14, we have our firstborn word appearing again. And so this is where we're introducing that word study, Bekor. Here's the occurrences of it, and you see it happens a whole lot in Exodus, more than it does in Genesis, but Numbers, the concept of sonship dominates. So when we get to that book, we'll definitely be looking at that. And then in First Chronicles, the concept of sonship as related to firstborn dominates. Okay, here's the zoom in of the Pentateuch. We can see how often it occurs. I'm gonna say Alexis. I'm not talking to Amazon or whoever that is. Exodus 11:5. This is talking about the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. There's just too many references for firstborn and son in the book of Exodus. There's tons of them that you could go through, grab a concordance, and walk through them. This is just talking about how the plagues on Egypt were against the gods of Egypt. And as I mentioned before in that one video, the firstborn of Pharaoh was considered the next one in line to be Pharaoh. And so therefore Pharaoh's thinking he's a god or in the place of God or mediator between gods. However way you want to look at it, the point is that God is showing that he's the only true God, and there's a battle going on there between the false gods. All right, so this is talking about the death of the firstborn. This is interesting. I may pick up on this thread later on. The command is to sanctify to me every firstborn. So the firstborn from every womb. And then the firstborn of man, it's mentioning there. The people won't let him go. But every firstborn of my sons I redeem. So there's that idea related to that. This is where we're going to talk a little bit more about Yarash right here. And Yarash is interestingly translated as destroy. Now, typically when I see the word Yarash, I'm thinking take possession, but it can mean drive out or destroy. And that's important because whenever you're in debates or discussions about annihilation and everything, this may be one of the words that you might want to consider what it means, especially in context. Does it literally mean that the people were totally wiped out, either physically dead, or they ceased to exist? I don't believe it teaches that they ceased to exist, but it's usually reference to temporal physical death or military defeat or something that drove out. And so in this one, it's translated as destroy. And here's the range of meaning, to destroy right there. And so you look and here's all the possibilities for Yarash. And you see that Deuteronomy is where this word dominates, because that's where they're being told, take possession of the land and all of that. In comparison to that, you got Joshua next. To destroy, drive out. So they say the verb to destroy something conceived of as driving something from a location. Okay. So in other words, to destroy something can just basically mean driving it out of that location. So the passage is Exodus 15:9, which I have here, I think, or I'll read it here just in case I skipped over. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My desire should be gratified against them. I will draw out my sword, my hand will destroy them. Okay. And in the context is military defeat, driving them from a location. Exodus 15:7. You will bring them and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. So this is where we have our word for inheritance, Nekila, right here. And there's the occurrence of it, mainly in Numbers. And then especially in Joshua, because that's where they divide up the inheritance issue. So here's our word, 15:17. There it is in the Hebrew. Now, this is the Bible.org thing that I did before, go to Bible.org and get the Lumina Bible study thing there, write in the word that you're looking for. This is the word for portion at this time, because I was like, okay, Hekla, got to say the guttural, is not in the book of Exodus. So the word for portion or whatever, I'm like, well, what shows up if I do that? And so these are the responses, and it's in verse order on the book of Exodus. And you go in here, and I have some of these, and it's talking about the manna. I will rain brain from heaven and portion, but it's not the same word. It's a similar concept, and you could probably do a word study on that and see if it relates to the other word for portion. This is going back to talking about the manna. Don't allow it wasn't just the manna that was not able to be left overnight. You should not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, nor is the fat of my feast to remain overnight to morning. So the fat either. So right here, and you should take the breast of Aaron's ram of ordination and wave it as a wave offering before the Lord, and this shall be your portion. It's related to that idea. And here, this is their portion forever from the sons of Israel. This is talking about, the sacrifice responsibility they have, and also the food that they get to eat from that. So going back to Yarash, it's interesting that, as I explained, it can mean to destroy in the sense to drive out. Let's see. I might have had that slide in the wrong place, but okay, this is more talk of the firstborn imagery. Here once again, here's Bible.org. This one is for the looking for the word possessed, or the conceptual stuff, and these are the passages that came up for that. I will drive them out before you. Oh, there it is right there. There's to drive out them before you little by little until you become fruitful and take possession of the land. So you got both concepts involved right there. Okay. And this is nakal, to cause to inherit, to assign inheritance, to a portion, to bequeath, to allotted, to possess, take possession. And here's those ranges of meaning right here. And there's the first reference of it in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, is Exodus 23:30, where we're at. And then 32:13 says this: remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants to whom you swore by yourself, and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heavens, and all the land of which I have spoken I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. So that's Nakal, I think, right there. And then here it is, they're taking it as their own possession. That's that language as well. Exodus 34:20, back to the firstborn idea. You shall redeem all the firstborn of your sons. None shall appear before me empty-handed. And then here's 34:24, for I will drive out nations before you and enlarge your borders, and no man shall covet your land when you go up 3 times a year to appear before the Lord your God. So he's talking about driving out the nations. And so Yarash can either mean destroy, or it can mean drive out. And sometimes when it uses the word destroy, meaning the context of destroy, it's in a figurative sense, like they're no longer in the land. Like when you play a football team and you skunk them. In other words, you destroyed them on the court. Doesn't mean the team doesn't exist anymore, but it means that they lost that badly. To drive out, here it is right here, Yarash, and there's tons of other words that go into that category. And it has the Greek from the Septuagint as well. But here, to drive out, to force to go away or go out, use both with concrete and metaphorical meanings. Okay. And this is just a reminder from Final Destiny that even though Israel had become God's firstborn son as a nation, the entire wilderness generation, with the exception of Caleb and Joshua, forfeited the inheritance due to the firstborn. God disinherited them, and they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and most of them died there. Another generation of Israelites similarly forfeited their inheritance rights and were sold as slaves in Babylon in 586. Jeremiah laments, our inheritance has been turned over to aliens, our homes to foreigners. And here's that passage right there. I think that's Nekala right there. So that shows you that an inheritance can be forfeited or lost. And that's it, I believe. So if you were blessed by that, That's great. I will start working on the next one, which will be Final Destiny and Leviticus Part 2. And then I think I'll be able to go in. I can't remember if I did numbers or not, but my goal is that now that I got it at the level that I want it, and now that I'm tracing these words the way it will, I think I'll be able to manage to include some of this stuff in one video, not just in part 1, part 2. But we'll just see how it goes. And either way, hopefully y'all are going to get something from these. I think you will, making them more manageable. So yeah, well, if you've been blessed by this, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell if you want notifications. Give us a thumbs up. Share this with others. And most of all, please keep this ministry in prayer. God bless.